Now we take on another important lesson, that is the conceptual model of entrepreneurship. A very important lesson. You need to understand the spirit of what we discuss here. We have seen already the difference or the relationship between these three: the entrepreneur, the entrepreneurship, and the enterprise. Let us briefly recapitulate that. We have seen that the entrepreneur is a living human being, that is you, and you know your strength and your weaknesses. You know what virtues you need to develop and what vices you need to discard. That means you have a control of yourself, or you have a control on yourself. Primarily, it means that when you look within yourself, you will feel that you have the potential, you have the qualification, you have the capabilities of being an entrepreneur. That is very good. And then when you look at the enterprise, that is a non-living thing. That is something which is your creation. You have given birth to. And that enterprise will work on your directions and your instructions. It will not work on its own. If you feed in garbage, you will get back garbage. The organization or the enterprise will not do anything on its own. So these two things, the entrepreneur and the enterprise, they are of no problem at all. But this thing called as entrepreneurship, this is the most complex and the abstract thing. I have taken the liberty of calling it the labor pain. You can only experience it, you can feel it, you cannot see or touch that. Peter Drucker says that it is neither an art nor a science. It is an action, a practice, something which has to be done. It cannot be explained in words. And this thing called as entrepreneurship is essential for the birth of the enterprise and necessary for its life and growth. Even after the enterprise is born, the entrepreneurship has to be there to keep the enterprise live and growing and to keep the entrepreneur rich and famous. This we all have understood. Now you see these known enterprises of the world: Apple, Walmart, Microsoft, Amazon, and a big list you can narrate. All these excellent enterprises are flourishing and the entrepreneurs are rich and famous. That is because the entrepreneurship is wonderful. The entrepreneurship in these organizations or these enterprises is wonderful. But there is even a bigger list, a list much wider and bigger which cannot be accommodated on the screen, where the entrepreneur has disappeared and the enterprise has vanished. That has happened because the entrepreneurship was either not good enough, or after giving birth to the enterprise, the entrepreneurship just went missing. So, got the point? Now, let us try and understand this conceptual model of entrepreneurship. If you keep this entrepreneurship in the center, like the spirit of a body or the soul of a body, then it has associated with it the person or the entrepreneur, that is you. Then it has got the organization or the enterprise to which you have given birth, and then the task or the work or the purpose for which the enterprise has been created. Don't worry, we shall discuss all these things in detail. And then all these things work in an environment. So these four things are the pillars of entrepreneurship. And each of this pillar has to be equally strong. If these pillars are not strong enough, then the entrepreneurship starts shaking and the enterprise will fall. All right, let us see one at a time. The first one that we look at is the person or the entrepreneur, that is you. Now you as a person need to have certain qualities. Don't worry about the details of these qualities. We shall discuss them in brief separately. But there are certain ingredients, certain characteristics which you need to possess as an entrepreneur. Your ideas, your innovativeness, your creativeness, your ingenuity, your enthusiasm, your risk taking ability, drive and passion, and so many other things which you would require. If you have it in you, then you will be able to give birth to the enterprise. Otherwise, not. But if you try to create an enterprise by virtue of your money, rather than giving it a birth through the process of entrepreneurship, then that enterprise will not last for long, or it may not last for long. Consider, for example, say if Sam did not have the ability or the capability to convince his father regarding that piece of land, if he did not have the enthusiasm, the passion to pursue what he was doing, if he did not have the perseverance to follow up the paper pushing with the government, getting all the clearances, fire safety and various other clearances, if he did not have the drive to get the things done, if he gave up halfway, or if he did not have the ability to take calculated risk, his entire savings and also borrowing from the bank, he invested into the venture. If he did not have all these capabilities and qualities, then that enterprise called as Sam and Syra Fuel Station would not have taken birth, isn't it? So now, having seen the person, let us come to the organization or the enterprise which has been born. All right. So this enterprise is your creation as the entrepreneur. Like Sam created Sam and Syra Fuel Station, you will create some enterprise or some organization. Your creation or your organization or your enterprise, that would comprise of human beings who will work for the organization. You see, the enterprise does not work on its own. It requires human beings. Sam and Syra will not be working on that fuel station alone. They would be hiring, they would be organizing and managing certain human beings to help them. And then they would require a lot of material resources for their functioning. Then they will have some rules, regulations, and policies for the smooth functioning of the fuel station. Certain policies, rules, regulations of the government, certain policies of the company, that is the Hindustan Petroleum, and certain rules, regulations, and policies within their organization, for their fuel station, they will have to frame certain policies, certain rules. And then they need to have a system of communication and culture. Every organization has a culture and a means of communication which keeps all its human being or the team well bound, and that culture and communication need to be respected. If all these things work in harmony, then the enterprise will function smoothly. But if there is no harmony within these things, then this pillar will start shaking again. And soon after birth, it may not survive if these things don't remain in harmony. Consider, for example, say after giving birth to the fuel station, if Sam did not make a clear cut policy on various issues like how the fuel will come, who will do the replenishment, who will collect the money, who will account for the money, who will manage the government officials, who will look after the fire safety. All these policies, rules, regulations, and framework, if Sam did not make, then that enterprise will soon fail. Don't you think so? Next, we come to the task. This task is the purpose for which the enterprise has been created. And this is that perceived opportunity which the entrepreneur would want to exploit. Isn't it? We have seen that the enterprise looks for the opportunity and he wants to exploit that opportunity. This task is the purpose for which the enterprise has been created. Now, in case of Sam's fuel station, what do you think is the task? Apparently, it may seem that the task is to dispense or sell fuel and lubricants. More he can sell, more profit he will earn. Well, literally or virtually, this is correct. The task of that entire enterprise is to sell fuel. And who will buy the fuel? Not the pedestrians, not the cyclists, but the vehicle owners, the truck drivers. They will be purchasing the fuel. And therefore, Sam has to do everything within his means, everything which is legally, morally, and ethically possible to lure and get all the fuel consumers, that is the vehicle drivers, to his fuel station without causing any inconvenience to the pedestrians, the cyclists, and the public. He needs to manage or lay down a framework for the task in such a manner that he gets his customers at the same time he does not disturb others. So the focus of the task should not be lost, and that focus must remain within the framework of legality, ethics, and morale. Try and understand this. You see, there are two ways in which customers will look at Sam's fuel station. Try and understand the spirit of what we are going to talk now. Alright? The first option with the customer is that even if they are away from Sam's fuel station, a customer may feel like, let us drive 10 miles more. Let us reach Sam's fuel station and we shall refuel at Sam's fuel station. This is one way a customer or any vehicle driver will look at. The other way to look at is that despite being in the vicinity of Sam's fuel station, the customer may say or the vehicle driver may say, let us go 10 miles ahead. We shall refuel at some other fuel stations. Got the point? Try and understand the difference between these two statements. Sam's task is not to sell fuel. That his staff will do. His manager will manage selling the fuel. Sam's task is to ensure that the vehicle owners choose option 1. Got the point? What I have written here in blue is the task of the manager. The task of the entrepreneur is what I have written in red. The moment Sam tries to sell fuel, he becomes the manager. Then who will look after this aspect? So therefore, try and understand the spirit of what is being discussed. If you understand the spirit and if you follow it, then your venture will never fail. And the last is the environment. The environment is something within which the entrepreneur and the enterprise and everybody else associated with it will work. I am not talking of the environment which is the nature. I am talking about the environment or the surrounding or the situation or the circumstances in which these people will work. That environment will comprise of opportunities and threats. There will be lot of opportunities, there will be lot of threats. There will be requirement of lot of resources, and there will be various constraints of money, constraints of manpower, constraint of time. And there will always be competition and hurdles. An entrepreneur will never function without competition, and he has to overcome hurdles. There is no entrepreneur in this world who does not face competition or hurdles. And then there are rules and regulations. As I said, the rules and regulations of the government, the rules and regulations of the company, that is the Hindustan Petroleum, rules and regulations framed by themselves, and then certain technological, social, and cultural environment, the cultural values. Sam may be from a particular religion, he may be Christian. His fuel station may be in some locality which is dominated by some other ethnic or cultural values. Those values must be respected. And all these things have to function again in harmony. If the pillar of environment is not strong enough, again the enterprise may start shaking and fall. Consider for example again, let us say in future, in times to come, two more fuel stations come up on either side of Sam's fuel station. There will be competition. Let us say if the government rules and regulations become very strict, becomes difficult to comply with, all right? Or let us say that due to some disturbance of the local social or ethnic fiber, people turn against Sam. Then what? All these situations need to be managed by the entrepreneur. All right? All these aspects have to be taken care of. And therefore, I say that all these four pillars of entrepreneurship have to be equally strong. Now, if you have understood the concept, if you have understood the spirit of what I have tried to explain, then you are a true entrepreneur, and rest assured, your venture, your startup will never fail if you take care of these aspects. All right.